The morning sun glinted off the windows of Charlotte Douglas International Airport, casting golden streaks across the bustling terminal. It was 6:37 a.m., and the concourse buzzed with the rhythm of rolling suitcases, hurried footsteps, and muffled announcements over the PA system. For Ava Thompson, this wasn't just another day at work. It was a dream realized. She stood in front of the mirror inside the staff lounge, adjusting the crisp navy blue pilot's uniform that still felt surreal every time she wore it. Gold stripes gleamed on her shoulders, and her cap rested perfectly above her neatly tied bun. At 36 years old, Ava had worked her way through years of training, sleepless nights, and countless exams. Now she was one of the youngest black female captains at the airline. She smiled softly at her reflection, remembering her grandmother's words. "Baby, the sky is wide enough for everyone. Don't let anyone tell you where you don't belong." Those words had carried her through the moments when people doubted her, when classmates snickered that women don't fly planes, and when an instructor once told her she was better suited to be a flight attendant. Today, she was captain of Flight 482, bound for New York City. Meanwhile, in the boarding area, Karen Miller tapped her foot impatiently, clutching her designer handbag. Mid-40s, with neatly pressed slacks and a beige cardigan, Karen had the air of someone who considered herself above the crowd. She sighed audibly every few minutes, checking her watch as if the airline schedule had been designed to inconvenience her personally. When the boarding call came, Karen sprang up, eager to get ahead of the line. She strutted down the jet bridge, purse tucked tightly under her arm, her expression a mix of annoyance and superiority. Her assigned seat was 14B, middle seat, economy class. When she reached it, her eyes froze. Sitting by the window in 14A was a young black woman, maybe in her 20s, with headphones in and a book resting in her lap. She looked up briefly, offered a polite smile, and then returned to her reading. Karen's lips tightened. She hesitated, glanced at the aisle, and then placed her bag down firmly. Instead of sitting, she flagged a flight attendant. "Excuse me," Karen said sharply. "There's been some mistake. I can't sit here." The attendant blinked. "Is there an issue with the seat, ma'am?" "Yes," Karen said, lowering her voice but not enough to hide the edge. "I'm not comfortable sitting next to her." She jerked her chin toward the young woman. The attendant stiffened, masking her shock with professional poise. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that is your assigned seat. The flight is full." Karen crossed her arms. "Then find me another one. I pay good money for tickets. I don't need to be crammed in next to someone like that." A hush fell over the surrounding rows. Passengers glanced up from their phones and magazines, eyes darting between Karen and the young woman in 14A, who now sat rigid, pretending to focus on her book. The attendant tried again. "I assure you, ma'am, every passenger deserves respect. Please take your seat so we can depart on time." Karen huffed, muttered something under her breath, and reluctantly slid into 14B, making a point of leaning toward the aisle as though the very presence of the woman by the window was offensive. The tension lingered in the air, like a storm cloud waiting to break. 15 minutes later, the cabin lights dimmed and the intercom crackled. A calm, confident female voice filled the air. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain, Ava Thompson, speaking. On behalf of our crew, I'd like to welcome you aboard Flight 482 with service to New York City. We're expecting smooth skies today, so sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight." Karen's head snapped up. Her eyes widened. She glanced toward the front of the plane as if to confirm what she had just heard. The captain? A black woman? Passengers around her murmured with admiration. "Wow, she sounds so professional." "Did you hear that? A female captain? Love to see it." But Karen sat frozen, her cheeks flushing crimson. The very type of woman she had deemed unworthy of sitting beside was now commanding a 75-ton aircraft at 35,000 feet. Up in the cockpit, Ava adjusted the throttle, her hands steady on the controls. Flying wasn't just a job for her, it was freedom. Every takeoff reminded her of how far she had come from the small neighborhood in Atlanta where she grew up. She remembered studying by candlelight during power outages, her mother working double shifts, her father telling her stories about the Tuskegee Airmen. Now, she was carrying over 100 passengers safely across the skies. Back in row 14, Karen shifted uncomfortably. The irony gnawed at her. She had refused to sit beside a black woman because of her prejudice, yet here she was, her life quite literally in the hands of another black woman, a pilot. The young passenger by the window, still reading, glanced at Karen with quiet awareness. For the first time since boarding, Karen avoided eye contact. Hours passed, but Karen couldn't shake the unease. The truth pressed in on her, undeniable and humiliating. Her assumptions had been wrong. When the plane touched down smoothly at LaGuardia, the cabin erupted in polite applause. Ava's voice returned over the speakers. "Thank you for flying with us today. It was our pleasure getting you safely to New York. On behalf of the crew, we wish you a wonderful day." Passengers gathered their belongings, chattering about connections, hotel reservations, and the captain's flawless landing. As Karen shuffled toward the exit, she found herself face to face with Captain Ava Thompson, who now stood at the cockpit door, greeting passengers with a warm smile. Karen's throat tightened. She hesitated, clutching her handbag as if it might shield her from the weight of her own prejudice. Ava's eyes met hers, calm, steady, professional. She extended her hand politely. "Thank you for flying with us." For a moment, Karen just stared. Then, awkwardly, she reached out and shook Ava's hand. Her voice caught. You flew beautifully." Ava smiled, her grip firm. "That's my job, ma'am. Safe travels." Karen stepped off the plane, her world tilted. The experience would replay in her mind for weeks, the moment her bias collided head-on with reality. The story didn't end at the jet bridge. A college student seated in row 13 had recorded the entire boarding incident on her phone. The confrontation, Karen's refusal, and later her stunned expression upon hearing Ava's voice over the intercom. She posted it online with the caption, "Woman refuses to sit next to black passenger, guess who ends up flying the plane?" The video went viral overnight. Millions watched, sharing comments like, "Poetic justice at 35,000 feet." "Captain Ava is an inspiration." "Maybe now Karen will think twice." News outlets picked up the story. Headlines read, "Black female pilot silences racist passenger with skill, grace," and "Representation in the skies," the story of Captain Ava Thompson. Ava herself remained humble. In interviews, she deflected attention from Karen and instead highlighted the importance of diversity in aviation. "This isn't about one passenger's behavior," Ava told a reporter. "It's about opening doors. Kids need to see that anyone, regardless of race or gender, can sit in this seat. The sky belongs to everyone." Her words resonated. Flight schools reported increased inquiries from young women and minority students. Ava began speaking at schools and aviation programs, inspiring a new generation of dreamers. As for Karen, she avoided the spotlight. Friends noticed she was quieter, less quick to judge. Something in her had shifted. Not overnight, but enough that when she traveled again weeks later, she didn't flinch at who sat beside her. Sometimes change begins not with lectures or arguments, but with a humbling moment, when life itself holds up a mirror. Months later, Ava stood in front of a classroom of wide-eyed children during a career day at an elementary school. She held up her captain's hat, letting them pass it around, their faces glowing with excitement. "Remember," she said, her voice steady and warm, "you can be anything you want to be. Don't let anyone's doubt become your limit. The sky is wide enough for all of you." And in the back row, a little girl with braids raised her hand. "Captain Ava, can girls really fly big planes like you?" Ava smiled, lit up the room. "Yes, sweetheart, girls can fly the biggest planes in the world." The applause from parents and teachers filled the room. Ava had turned prejudice into proof. She had transformed doubt into inspiration. And she had shown that sometimes the greatest victories aren't just in the skies, but in the hearts changed along the way.